Navroz marks the beginning of the Persian New Year. It is an opportunity to look ahead to envisioning a better future. Today, Navroz is celebrated in Iran, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and many other countries where Ismailis and other Shia communities reside. It is through celebrations such as Navroz that diverse communities come together to rejoice, commemorate, and unite as one Ummah. Even though Navroz may be celebrated in different ways around the world, its significance remains the same. Through the primary IIS Talim curriculum, Baitul Ilm students continuously build upon their own understanding of how festivals and celebrations are central to the life of a religious community. They also develop a greater appreciation of the diverse and rich cultures around us, as well as those within our Jamaat. Students explore key themes such as the diversity of expressions, celebrations as a way of bringing us happiness, and feeling a sense of belonging, and that there are various celebrations that can bring us together as one community, one Jamaat. Our Baitul Ilm students and their families have been anticipating Navroz and planning for the occasion in various ways. Let's take a look at some ways in which our Baitul Ilm families have been preparing for Navroz. Navroz is a time for reflection and a time to look back upon the year that has passed before we spring forward. Although this past year has been a challenging one for all of us, we are also grateful for the many blessings which we have in our lives. These include the love of our families, the connection with our community, and our Imam's constant guidance to continue to help us through these uncertain times. Live your faith. This guidance from Maulana Hazri Imam is the core goal for young students as they progress through their religious education and life journey. We desire for our students to have comfort, confidence, and appreciation of how to live their faith in accordance with the Imam's guidance. By encouraging students to think flexibly, by connecting their learning to real issues, they are inspired to become curious, compassionate individuals with a desire to make a difference to those around them, thus leaving the world in a better place. With the tremendous dedication and commitment of our Baitul Ilm leadership, teachers, and volunteers, students have continued to be engaged with their learning during this past year. By attending Baitul Ilm, students have felt a sense of care and support and have been able to access religious education. Students have been reflecting on ways in which they can engage with their faith and how their faith has been a source of support and inspiration, and furthermore, where they can continue to draw strength. The occasion of Navroz presents itself with an exciting opportunity to renew ourselves, build resilience, and look to the future with optimism and hope. Navroz is a time when spring begins in many countries. It is the season of new beginnings. There is a heightened spirit to embrace this change happening all around us in nature. Baitul Ilm students and families reflected on the importance and significance of Navroz and the theme of renew. Part of this meant taking care of our own well-being and those around us, and taking time to experience and appreciate all of Allah's creation. Indeed, Allah is Al-Khaliq, the creator of the world and of all the things in the world. Let's take a look at the many ways in which our Bethlehem students and families have been taking care of their well-being as they experience nature throughout the various seasons. During this past year, we have had to reimagine our lives and the way in which we have been used to doing things in our everyday world. Navroz is a time where we can look to the future and the blessings it will bring. Betul Ilm helps to promote resilience in our students. Betul Ilm fosters ways in which we can help build this skill in our young students from an early age. By connecting the Talim curriculum to the relevancy of their everyday life, to surrounding them with a strong support system, to enabling their voice and creativity, Betul Ilm seeks to encourage the holistic development of each and every student. As we commemorate the occasion of Navroz, we do so with hope and optimism of what the new year will bring. Navroz Mubarak.
Hi everybody! The story I will be talking about is called The Dervish and the Confectioner, and in this story, the dervish explains that the flies that are stuck too deep in the honey cannot get back out, while the flies that are less greedy and stick to the edges of the honey can return home. The flies that are too deep in the honey refer to people who are too engrossed in the material world, and when it's time to go, they will have difficulty. The story connects to Navroz, as Navroz is a time for newness and new ideas, and this story definitely changed my perspective on life and gave me a new one.
During these difficult times, Navroz comes as a reminder of hope and rejuvenation. In Central Asian tradition, Navroz symbolizes an important time of the year to celebrate for an optimistic future. As we are studying the Quran module, it makes me reflect on Allah's words from Surah Yasin. They remind us that despite our challenges, we should always remember that Allah sustains and provides for us. I express humble gratitude to Allah for keeping my family safe and blessed during these unprecedented times. Tashakkur and thank you.
In BUI, we read the story called Conference of the Birds. I would like to share an excerpt from the story. It reads, "My feathered friends, do not despair. I know you feel alone. But rise and cheer, we have a king. I've seen his golden throne. He waits for you, my feathered friends, our King Simur the Wise. With him you'll find a love that's true, a love that never dies." What this story meant to me was we gathered together to conquer the difficult challenges of the past year and move forward to new beginnings. At the end, we will rise stronger as individuals and as a community. I wish you all a Navroz Mubarak.
In my painting, there are colorful trees on either side of a path, and on the path is a person. That person represents us on our journey of life. In the Quran, it says, "He brings the earth to life after its death." In these are signs for people who ponder and reflect. Navroz is a time when flowers bloom, a time when flowers develop their color, and it's also a time to rejuvenate, both physically and spiritually.
Literature opens a window for us and gives us an opportunity to ponder on ourselves and what we are doing. Just like Navroz, a new day, marks the beginning of spring that refreshes nature, similarly, literature refreshes our life with the hope to develop a new thinking. As we're responsible for our actions on the Day of Judgment, let's pause and think about how we can grow ourselves by learning from our past and make our future bright.
Navroz is an occasion for me to reflect on my actions and show gratitude. In Quran Sharif, Surah Qaf, Ayat 7, Allah speaks of the beauty of earth. This year in Baitul Ilm, we looked at the Quran as a wellspring of inspiration in our lives. Navroz provides me with the opportunity to seek inspiration from the source of tradition for our lives. As trees blossom and the sun shines brighter in this special season, spring brings new hopes in our lives too. reminding us that all blessings, rahmah, comes only from Allah.
As we navigate through the challenges of our world today, we look to the guidance of the Quran and of Hazrat Imam. Through BOI, I've learned that Hazrat Imam interprets the Quran based on the time and context of the Jamaat to provide a source of inspiration to help us stay on Sirat al-Mustaqim. In a speech on October 19, 2003, Hazrat Imam stated, quote, "The Quran is an inclusive vision of society that gives primacy to the nobility of conduct. It speaks of differences of language and color as a divine sign of mercy and important for people of knowledge to reflect upon," unquote. As part of our tradition, we look to Hazrat Imam for guidance and assistance in times of need, and as we look towards Navroz as a new beginning, let us be hopeful and carry these messages with us.
Navroz to me means a day of new beginnings and an opportunity to become better versions of ourselves. This year, my Navroz resolution is to continue practicing my faith and care for the people in my life. I can show these values by continuing to say my dua regularly and by showing acts of kindness such as helping those in need and staying connected with my loved ones. So today, take the time to think about your resolutions too. Remember to take care of yourself and others. Navroz Mubarak.
Over the past year, we've had to change our way of life, and in particular, the way in which we've stayed connected to our community. A message from Maulana Hazrat Imam said, "These bonds of community have sustained throughout history and will continue in the difficult months ahead." In BOI this year, I learned that the Imam supports us through his interpretations of the Quran and making its message accessible to us today. In a speech given by our Imam, he said, "The Holy Book continues to illuminate the thought and conduct of Muslims belonging to different cultural environments and different communities of interpretation, from century to century." As we look forward to this upcoming year, we can continually rely on the Imam's support to keep us happy and remain hopeful during this difficult time.
This term in BUI, we are learning about life as a journey of spiritual search through examples of Muslim literature. I have compared my journey to a dry leaf. For the leaf to get color and feel like it is fulfilled, it must stay under the sun and be watered regularly. Only then it can live and stay connected to its roots. Once it reunites with its roots, its true colors will be back. The leaf represents me. In order for me to feel spiritually nourished, I must stay under the light, the guidance of Maulana Hazrat Imam. Navroz is a reminder for me to reflect on my journey of life and renew my commitment to it.
I will share with you a piece of Muslim literature that we studied and that for me connects to Navroz. It is Conference of the Birds by Farid Uddin Attar. This piece of literature connects to Navroz because Navroz is about new beginnings and fresh starts. Similar to the story, where the birds go on a journey with their guide who go to find their creator, and they soon realize that their creator was living inside of them once they let go of all the materialistic possessions, starting a fresh beginning to a new life.
I am Mika Damji, and I'm a member of the Encounters TED Ed program. My passion is the role of women in sports, and I was curious if the Quran had any guidance to help me with my TED Talk. The Quran says that we are one, and surahs indicate that men and women are equal. Things get complicated when we try to understand what that means in different cultures and contexts. How does this connect to women in sports? We struggle with how we think about women and how to create change. It wasn't that long ago that women couldn't go to university or vote, but that's changed, and this can too. Our theme for Navroz is Hope Springs Eternal. My hope is that as a community, we listen to the Quran and our Imam and take action to work towards a better future.
Maulana Hazrat Imam in his inaugural speech on October 19, 2003 states that, quote, "The Holy Book continues to guide and illuminate the thought and conduct of Muslims belonging to different communities of interpretation and spiritual affiliation from century to century in diverse cultural environments," unquote. Over the past 1400 years, the Quran has continued to guide and inspire Muslims all over the world. We are able to rely on the Imam of the time as the Rasikun film to help us interpret and engage with the Quran. Let us celebrate the new year by following the guidance of the Quran and our beloved Imam to get through these unprecedented times together as one Jamaat.
I've been giving some thought to the idea of Navroz, which marks the start of the new year and the beginning of spring. The idea of new beginnings is central to Navroz. Comment pouvons-nous créer et saisir des occasions durant la nouvelle année? Comment pouvons-nous garder espoir? Comment pouvons-nous rester optimistes face à l'adversité? Comment pouvons-nous cultiver l'ouverture et la compréhension, non seulement aujourd'hui, mais à tous les jours? Bien qu'il n'y ait pas une seule réponse à ces questions, elles suscitent une réflexion utile sur l'année qui vient de s'écouler, une réflexion qui peut nous permettre d'avancer au moment où nous accueillons le nouvel an. This is a community, like so many others, that overcame significant obstacles, and of course its members are leaders in every profession across the country today. Indeed, the story of hope and hard work is one that Canadians from all backgrounds can relate to, one that lives on in our communities and, hopefully, transcends our borders. While Navroz is a time of celebration and new beginnings, it also reminds us of our privilege during this time of change. As Canadians, we are fortunate to live in a country where our rights are enshrined in the Constitution, where our freedoms are entrenched in laws. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms ensures that all Canadians can speak their mind, practice their faith, and stand up for what they believe in. Because of the Charter, every Canadian is entitled to a new beginning. I want to end by sharing with you the wise words of the Persian poet Hafiz, which I believe capture the spirit of this occasion. Spring and all its flowers now joyously break their vow of silence. It is time for celebration, not for lying low. Once again, thank you for having me here today to join in this celebration. To all those who have gathered around the Hafsin table this week and are gathering in Jamaat Khanas this evening, I wish you all peace, health, happiness, and prosperity in the new year. Navroz Mubarak, may peace and blessings be upon you.
Many of you will remember the day when we formally opened two stunning buildings on this site, the Arkan Museum and the Ismaili Center. That was just 8 months ago. We promised that we would be back in the spring to dedicate the park that joins these two buildings. Spring would be a time, we thought, when the park's natural beauty could be seen to the fullest advantage. And I have to admit that I spent much of this morning wondering whether it was going to rain or not. Well, spring is here. And here we are, and what a privilege it is to share this occasion with all of you. The garden has for many centuries served as a central element in Muslim culture. The Holy Quran itself portrays the garden as a central symbol of a spiritual ideal, a place where human creativity and divine majesty are fused, where the ingenuity of humanity and the beauty of nature are productively connected. Gardens are a place where the ephemeral meets the eternal, and where the eternal meets the hand of man. The tradition of Islamic gardens places an emphasis on human stewardship, our responsibility to nature and to protect the natural world. We see that principle expressed in the disciplined use of geometric form, framing the power and mystery of nature. And of course, the garden of ancient tradition, like the garden here today, is a place where, whatever difficult moments may come our way, we can always find in the flow of refreshing water a reminder of divine blessing.
یا علی مدد، خوش آمدید. بینوینم. نام من زین ولجی است و من شما را به این برنامه تأملات جمعه شب خوش آمدید میگویم و مهمتر از همه نوروز همه شما مبارک. ما آخرین هفته نوروز را تجلیل خواهیم کرد و برنامه امشب آغازگر این جشن که طی چند روز آینده به صورت مجازی و حضوری میان خانواده ها در سراسر این کشور بزرگ ادامه خواهد داشت می باشد. فارغ از این که از کجا با ما می پیوندید، خواه از ساحل غربی در بریتیش کلمبیای زیبا یا ساحل شرقی و در کلگری جایی که من هستم یا آن مکان وحشتناک که بعضی ها آن را تورنتو می نامند، البته یک شوخی بود، شما را با برنامه امشب خوش آمدید می گویم. و بله، البته به همه شما از هر جای دنیا که هستید خوش آمدید می گویم. ما می دانیم که یک تعداد از شما در حال دستبرد این برنامه عالی کانادایی به سواحل انگلستان، آسیا یا در ایالات متحده هستید، در حالی که مرزهایمان ممکن است بسته باشند، اما ما مطمئنا از بودنتان در کنار ما بسیار خوشحال هستیم. یادآور میشم که این 4مین بار من است که میزبان بازتاب جمعه شب‌ها هستم. البته من سازمان دهندگان برنامه را برای انجام چنین کار وادار کردم. بنابراین ممنونم که مرا برگردانیدید. ممکن است متوجه شود که این بار من در مقابل نقاشی ارزان قیمت استاندارد خانه خود ننشستم. اگر رکوردهای قدیمی را تماشا کنید، در پشت من نقاشی فیل‌های وجود دارد. اما متوجه خواهید شد که من این بار در مقابل آن نقاشی ها نیستم. ممکن است از خود بپرسید چرا؟ خب، دلیل آن بسیار ساده است. امشب با رئیس صاحب امیرعلی قاسم لاکا مصاحبه خواهم کرد. و اگر رئیس صاحب قاسم لاکا را میشناسید، نه تنها سخنان بسیار الهام بخش و صمیمانه‌ای دارد، بلکه اتاق زیبایی نیز دارد. بنابراین برای رقابت با او من در قسمتی دیگر از خانه نشستم. در واقع این حتی خانه من نیست. من در گوشه شرکت آیکیا نشستم، در حالی که همکارانم در حال خوردن ماسهای $1 اند. این در واقع شاید غیر قانونی باشد، اما خواهیم دید که آیا آنها مرا اخراج خواهند کرد یا نه. موضوع امشب نوروز است، به این معنی که امشب ما با یک مصاحبه با رئیس صاحب قاسم لاکا شروع خواهیم کرد برای بحث در مورد بازتاب‌های سال 2020، این که این همگیری برای ما چی معنی دارد، برای جماعت به چی معنی است، و همچنین من با او در یادداشت دلچسب درباره زندگیش صحبت خواهم کرد. میدانید این یک سال غیر معمولی برای رئیس صاحب بوده است. احتمالاً آنها انتظار نداشتند که به صورت هفته‌وار از طریق یوتیوب و بازبینی‌های جمعه شب با جماعت سخنرانی کنند. ما در مورد آنچه که امسال او با یک عنوان رهبر آموخته است و آنچه امسال او در مورد قدرت و فرصت موجود در جامعه ما آموخته است صحبت خواهیم کرد. بعد از آن یاد خواهیم گرفت که چگونه برخی از خوراک‌های مختصر را برای جشن آخر هفته آماده کنیم، از جمله شربت که بسیار معروف است، و 7 میوه، یک غذای افغانی که مخصوص نوروز درست شده است. بنابراین بله، در حقیقت کربوهیدرات بیشتر مصرف می شود، در صورتی که 19 پوند برای کووید 19 اضافه نکرده اید. ما همچنین با خواندن شعر بهار از سروده های جلال الدین رومی سرگرم خواهیم شد. ما از موکی، موکیانی، کامریا و کامریانی های محبوبمان از جماعتخانه مرکزی خواهیم شنید. آنها نمایندگی از تمام موکی، موکیانی، کامریا و کامریانی ها از سراسر کشور خواهند نمود. و سپس ما با برخی از اجراات موسیقی خاص که به طور ویژه برای مناسبت نوروز ساخته شده اند، برنامه خود را با پایان خواهیم رسانید. و اکنون بدون تأخیر بیشتر اینک مصاحبه ما با رئیس صاحب امیرعلی قاسم لاکا.
President Saib, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I want to jump right into it. We're sitting here in March of 2021. Take me back to March of last year. We were talking about the coronavirus. We hadn't even had the term COVID-19 in our communal lexicon, so to speak. Canada had just declared that we were closing our borders. We as an international community, had just called this a pandemic. As a leader of our Jamaat here in Canada, what was the first thought that went through your mind when you heard about what was coming and what was on our doorstep as a country, but also as a community?
Zain, it kind of takes me back to the beginning of last year in early January. We made a decision that there was a possibility that the risk to Canada would escalate, the risk to Jamaat would escalate. And so very kind of early on in the year, we decided that we wanted to put a small team together that would be able to provide some leadership and think issues through so that the Jamaat was prepared. And we were concerned primarily from a health perspective. And so very early in the year, we established a task force to just stay ahead and think issues through and prepare, just in case. Fast forward to March, the time that we closed the Jamaat Khanas. And I remember that date very, very clearly. It was March 13th. It's etched in my mind. In the week leading up to the closure of Jamaat Khanas, I would say that was perhaps the most difficult period because the weight of the decision that we had to make in terms of closing Jamaat Khanas, this is something that has not happened in our generation. And it was something that was going to be so impactful on the Jamaat. And, as a set of leaders, we wanted to make sure that we did not make this decision prematurely in a hurried way, but in a consultative way and of course with guidance. And it was a tough decision. I will never forget. It was a very tough period for us as leadership. It was an even tougher period for the Jamaat.
Yeah, I want to double click on that week and that date a little bit more if it's okay with you. Because, right now in retrospect, it seems like the decision to close Jamaat Khana was a no-brainer. We saw this pandemic rage on a year. We saw that it was actually, in fact, global. The toll it's taken on lives and livelihoods. It seemed like an obvious choice. But in that moment in time, you were dealing with such a vacuum of both information and criteria and how to kind of make this decision. What did that teach you about two things? And maybe I'll start with the first. What did that teach you about leadership? What did that teach you about your capacity for leadership in that moment in time if we double click on that particular time period?
What it taught me, Zain, is that it's very important to be surrounded by subject matter experts and to consult with them on a very, very regular basis, but on a very meaningful basis when you have to make such difficult decisions. And I have to tell you that in that particular period, the importance of consultation as a leader, so that we were making an informed choice, as kind of a set of decisions that we could justify in our own minds, but justify to the Jamaat, and ultimately justify through time. It was very, very difficult, and it really tested our capacities and our resilience, because when you've never experienced and seen something like that in your lifetime, where you've taken Jamaat Khana and going to Jamaat Khana as a given, that Jamaat Khana doors are open for you every day, every morning, every evening, and to suddenly make a decision to temporarily close down Jamaat Khanas, those things really weighed heavily on our minds. And I have to say that it was the team decisions and the team kind of consensus, and ultimately the guidance that we received that really helped us carry through those decisions and those processes.
As I talk about double clicking on that particular week, that's the leadership lesson. It also probably taught you something about the Jamaat, because here's what I want to read you a list very quickly, if it's okay, right? I'm reading you the list for, we launched the access line, We launched digital programming, including Friday Night Reflections. We launched Ismaili TV. This is in a matter of mere weeks and months. And there's a phrase, and I know I'm going to butcher it, but I'll try anyways. It's never stopped me. That often you can get years worth of work done in weeks, and often it takes, a significantly longer amount of time to get just weeks of work done. And this really seems to be the former, that we got so much done off the ground as a Jamaat. What did that teach you about not just the resiliency of our institutions, but what did that teach you about our Jamaat in that moment in time, in those early days of this pandemic?
Well, Zain, it speaks to the expression that's often used, necessity is the mother of invention. But what really we saw in action in those first few weeks was the Jamaat's volunteer spirit. We had been thinking about establishing the access lines for several months. And we'd been thinking about the digital platforms that are available to the Jamaat. How do we broaden their reach? How do we deepen their reach, etc.? And they were able to do things within matter of days and weeks, like you said, that would have otherwise taken us months. It speaks to the deep commitment that our Jamaat has to service to the Imam at the time and to service to the Jamaat.
I do want to talk about that future state, what this means for the Jamaat. But before I do that, how have we fared as a Jamaat over the past 12 months or so? What's your assessment been as a Jamaat, how we've, how well have we stuck together? How well have we supported one another? What's your take on that? And if there's any anecdotes to kind of share or kind of exemplify that, would love to hear those as well.
I think, Zain, it's been a very difficult year for the Jamaat, but the Jamaat has been very courageous, very resilient. And I can tell you that as leadership, we deeply admire the Jamaat's patience, their understanding, especially through these phases of Jamaat kind of closure and reopening and closure again. These things are not easy, but we see light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, today, when we think about it, vaccinations are underway and a significant portion of our Jamaat will, inshallah, be immunized within a couple of months. So I think that, the Jamaat's understanding, there have been such few complaints from the Jamaat about the reopening process and, their experience when they return to Jamaat Khanas and the closures again. Jamaat has shown a lot of gratitude, a lot of understanding, a lot of patience, and we recognize that.
What lessons do you think this has kind of taught us as a community? And maybe I'll use that as both the Ismaili community, but even more broader, as a leader more broadly. What lessons do you think this has kind of taught us looking back in the year that was? And, it's hard to comment on history while you're living it, because we still are. In many ways, this thing is not over. But if you were to kind of give me your preemptive or initial take on what lessons we've learned or what lessons we should be learning, what would they be in your mind?
So, Zain, a couple of things come to mind as we kind of look back and distill what the key lessons are. I think the first is the importance of family unity. Being there for one another is critical at all times, but more so in a crisis. Families provide strength to face adversity, and it's so important to nurture that unity at all times. I think this is kind of one of the first key takeaways, and it applies to any community. Second is the importance of community. We as a community are very strong. Alhamdulillah, we make sacrifices for one another, and we derive so much happiness in making those sacrifices for the Jamaat. And it puts us in a very privileged position, more so than we realize. A lot of people don't fully realize how fortunate we are as a Jamaat because of the support structures we have, the volunteers that we have, and the selfless work that the volunteers carry out. So I would say that the value of community is definitely a second lesson. And then third, I would say, is our faith. And our faith can carry us through any adversity. We are so fortunate to have Hazrat Imam's guidance. He has been throughout the pandemic, providing us with so much guidance, blessings. Every couple of weeks, months, Hazrat Imam has provided a message to the Jamaat globally. These things give us confidence. They give us the strength that we will come out of this crisis stronger, more positive. So I think I would distill it to these three lessons. It's the importance of family unity, community, and faith.
Tell me about a bit as we look into the future. What are some of the trends you see coming up that COVID has perhaps accelerated in some ways, if I can say, perhaps has catalyzed in a certain degree? And I'd maybe even like to get your classification as to what you think are trends that might be short-lived and what you think COVID has done to produce net new realities for us going forward.
Well, look, the first thing, Zain, is that I think a world of opportunity will belong to those who see what's on the horizon and capitalize on it. And that's why it's important to understand the trends. The pandemic has accelerated trends in e-commerce, in telehealth, in online education. 80% of post-secondary programs today are available online. It is now estimated that 25% more workers will need to change their occupations due to digital disruption relative to when the pandemic started. So, these are important things for all of us to take into account and keep in mind as we think about our individual futures. But if we look at specific trends that I think the community as a whole needs to be aware of, which the general public recognizes, the experts keep talking about, is that, first of all, remote work and virtual meetings, these things will become the norm. They're going to be part of the way in which business is conducted. And then I think the second kind of very important thing to recognize, because it's going to impact on jobs, on employment, is the increased use of robotics and automation. The reality is that the future of work as a result of the pandemic has arrived much faster. And I think the third kind of trend is that the mix of occupations is going to shift towards more forward-looking technologies. Again, we've been speaking about that for such a long time, but these are realities that we have to face. And I think a fourth thing to highlight is that shopping behaviors that have emerged through the pandemic are going to remain. And I bring that up in particular because a lot of the Jamaat is focused, for example, on the retail industry and needs to be aware of what the implications are going to be. So, the Jamaat has to think about these things, remain ahead of the curve, and plan for some of these trends that we're going to have to adjust to.
Let's talk a little bit about what our post-pandemic sort of mindset looks like. We've discussed many things around certain accelerations that we're going to see professionally. If you were to kind of give the Jamaat advice on the mindset that they need to equip themselves with, albeit the caveat that we're still living in this history that is, what would you tell them?
I would say to the Jamaat that we should not think that change is over and that the world will return to what it was before the pandemic. There is need for creative and flexible thinking to address future problems. And those people who demonstrate those innate qualities will find it easier to identify opportunities and address the challenges that lie ahead. I think opportunities will be available to those who are deliberate and who take action. We need to position our families. We need to position our children in the best way possible, and we need to be anticipatory. I think that's the mindset that's required moving forward from here.
You've listed quite a few things there. I want to kind of try to tease a few of them out, but maybe I'll try to get personal for a second, which is, that change is always constant, and paraphrasing your point here, that going forward, it's going to be an undue reality in terms of what we face. What's something that's kind of changed for you? Like maybe an assumption that you've held going into the pandemic. Was there any change that you took from either a strongly held conviction of how to do things or the way things were done to maybe having this pandemic expose otherwise?
I think in terms of, the Jamaati work itself, if I can use that particular example, and how the Jamaati institutions have operated in terms of the ways of engaging with one another, all the volunteers, etc. And in the early months of the pandemic, there was this kind of strong desire to see life go back to normal, and that we have those kind of very close interactions amongst all the volunteers, amongst the leadership, etc., and having that personal contact. But when I'm using this as an example, as time has gone by, and I'm looking at the efficiencies that have emerged through pandemic, how people have just embraced the technologies that are available and embraced the efficiencies that come with it. I'm beginning to realize that things are not going to go back to the historic ways of doing things. That connectivity is available in different ways. We just have to embrace it, make it work for us, and recognize that some things will just change, even in the way in which the institutions and the Jamaat operates. So I think that I'm giving you one example, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of how the communal institutions operate.
I want to go back to the COVID mindset for a second for the Jamaat. I think you've laid out some really good instructions for what that mindset is, your bullet points. I'm perhaps going to ask you a slightly harder question, which is how? How do you get the Jamaat to embrace this? You're talking about the fact that many of us might be anxious to get back to normal, that we're almost going to try to will the world to go back where it isn't convenient, will the world to go back to a way that it was because that's the rut and that's the lane we're used to playing in. Do you have any advice for the Jamaat as to, yes, we know what the mindset needs to be, but how to get there?
Zain, I would say that some things are just going to happen naturally. Things with respect to day-to-day life, family life, things that people have to, contend with in terms of their personal, decisions that are not necessarily career-related or education-related or business-related, things like shopping behaviors, etc. People will figure those things out. And if there is a change, people will, over a period of time, adjust to it. They will embrace it over a period of time. What worries me is the economic implications. What concerns me is that if people are displaced, they lose their jobs because there's pressure on that particular job category. Their business is at risk because they come under pressure in that particular industry. And they don't think hard and quickly enough and prepare and invest in retooling. That worries us. So I think we have to separate economic matters from other matters. And I'm specifically highlighting economic matters because we want the Jamaat to remain ahead of the curve. We want the Jamaat to move ahead of the curve and really think these issues through and be prepared. Now is the time. We have had this opportunity of, let's call it downtime, for several months. And at the same time, academic institutions at the post-secondary level have offered their programs in the digital spaces. Over 80% of post-secondary programs are available today online. And this is an opportunity for the Jamaat, and the Jamaat has to see it and take advantage of it. We keep repeating these particular opportunities for the Jamaat and identifying programs that the Jamaat can access, but they really are something that we have to address immediately as a community.
I really appreciate that because I think it really tries to distinguish between things that will just happen to us, whether we want to embrace it or not, versus things we have to harness, that if we actually outright take action on, we can be on the upside and the upswing of. One of the most interesting stats of this pandemic, and I'm sure you've heard it too, was the amount of income inequality that it caused. That for the top 10%, and if not the top 1%, this was the best time of their life. They were living their best life in this pandemic because commute times went down, technology made business travel less necessary, and they were still having cash flow and income come in. And for the remainder of the population, it was a little bit tougher. It was a much more difficult life. And I think what you're saying is that the oxygenation of certain opportunities post-pandemic will be available. It's just whether we want to choose to get them or not. I'm going to shift gears a bit to this conversation, to be a little meta, because the Jamaat is really familiar with you. And they're really familiar with you because for so many episodes of Friday Night Reflections, I think the first 30 or so, you were on every single week talking to us directly to thousands of people. And I've got two questions. The first one is, did you think that's what your presidency would look like? Would be giving, outright statements every single week and heartfelt messages to the Jamaat every single week? And kind of what kind of spurred that? And secondly, why did you continue doing it? Because I'd say that, to your earlier point about reaching thousands of people at a time, the Jamaat is intimately familiar with who you are simply because we've seen you week in and week out. So kind of take me through that exercise and kind of why you went down that track of speaking to us each week through our, television screens, laptops, and phones.
Zain, I'll tell you, there were many things that were going through our minds, and my mind in particular. We wanted to be available for the Jamaat. We wanted the Jamaat to know that the Jamaati institutions are here to support them. We wanted the Jamaat, first of all, to be connected. And, the reason I continued to speak week after week is because there were certain priorities that, as leadership based on the guidance of Maulana Hazri Imam have been identified for the Jamaat, for the Canadian Jamaat. And we felt that it was an important occasion and opportunity to share with the Jamaat, to express the priorities that we were seeing and how we were considering these priorities. And the fact that the Jamaat was very receptive, was very responsive, we wanted to avail that opportunity. But most importantly, we wanted to make sure that the Jamaat did not feel isolated in their thinking and become isolated. We were worrying all the time about every segment of the Jamaat. Those we were reaching through the access lines, those we were not able to reach through access lines, through the different programming that kind of came on stream. We were constantly thinking about which segment are we reaching, which one are we not reaching, but we wanted to be there for everyone. And I took it upon myself personally to make sure that we utilize that particular platform to reach out to as widely as possible. I want to say to you, Zain, that the Jamaati institutions want nothing more than for the Jamaat to succeed. We want to support them in achieving their goals. And a couple of weeks ago, we started a new mini-series talking to the Jamaat, and we call the series, From the Heart. And I tell you why we made the decision to communicate to the Jamaat about the soft skills that are necessary in order to emerge from COVID. I spoke to the Jamaat again about resilience, networking, mentoring, agency, humility, and how these will be key differentiators coming out of COVID. Here's what our motivation was. We wanted to share the importance of these qualities with our youth early in their careers. Sometimes it can take years, decades, a lifetime to figure out the importance of qualities such as humility and networking and resilience. And we want to give everybody a jump start. We want people to succeed. We don't want them to take years to figure out how critical some of these soft skills, these qualities are to make progress in business, in career, in the workplace, etc. So, we've come from a place of genuine desire to really support the Jamaat. And that's why, we have been speaking about all these varied topics over the past 12 months.
For me, I have to add the additional reason or the exciting reason to watch you every single week has not just been your words, because they've been great, but I love to see which room you're coming to us from. And in fact, I have remodeled my entire house for this interview. I know that you fight fire with fire. I didn't know we would have that significant an impact. Well, I have the letter Z from Winners. That's the best I could do.
Okay, there you go.
President Saib, I want to ask you to close off any final words of wisdom, but before you do that, you're not off the hook so easily. I want to do a quick lightning round, some quick questions for you. Are you game to play with me?
Sure.
Okay. My first question is your biggest lesson that you've learned this year.
The importance of consensus decision-making and consulting experts. It's very important to be kept well-informed through the opinions of others. You have got to be a good listener.
That's an excellent answer. I know you're a Torontonian. Will the Toronto Raptors make the playoffs?
Yes.
Very, very presidential diplomatic answer. I like that there. last couple of questions. What book are you reading now? Anything interesting that you're reading?
You know what? I've actually reread Justice and Remembrance. I read it before by Reza Shah Kazemi, and every time I read it, I derive so much more from it, and it really kind of helps put everything that we're experiencing through this pandemic in perspective.
Another great answer. Okay, final two questions for you. What's your Navroz tradition? We are celebrating Navroz with this week's episode of Friday Night Reflections. Do you and your family have a Navroz tradition that you generally go through?
Biryani, that's a constant.
Fantastic. I mentioned earlier on the program that I tried to make some biryani and it was a miserable failure. So I'm glad it is biryani from a trusted vendor, if not making it yourself. President Saib, the last question I want to leave you with or ask you is, what wisdom do you have for us going forward? I think we took a pretty nice drive through the year that was, March to March in many ways. We kind of talked a bit about the future. Anything you want to leave us with? Any high-level thoughts you want to part us with?
Sure. Well, look, there's a couple of things I want to bring up. First is, I want to say to the Jamaat, prepare for the future. There's no point in preparing for careers and businesses that will decline. Continuing education is more important now than ever before. But I want to say to the Jamaat institutions are here to support every step of the way. I want to thank our volunteers who have been outstanding. Without them, everything that has been achieved to support the Jamaat, our efforts, would not have been possible. And I do want to wish the Jamaat Navroz Mubarak and our most sincere prayers for the Jamaat's happiness, their success, and barakat.
Thank you so much, President Saib. Navroz Mubarak to you too. Thank you for taking the time to go through this conversation, to kind of do a little bit of a retrospective of the year, but also look at the future in terms of both the opportunities and the challenges and how to harness them. So thank you so much for your time and really appreciate the conversation.
از رئیس صاحب قاسم لاکا برای گفتگوی خارق‌العاده‌شان متشکرم. من تنها چیزهای زیاد در مورد آنچه که شما برای جماعت می‌بینید، بلکه اینکه چگونه ما را در چنین زمان بی‌سابقه و غیر قابل پیش‌بینی هدایت می‌کنید آموختم. بنابراین از شما به خاطر به اشتراک گذاشتن آن داستان‌ها و حکایات و همچنان به خاطر به اشتراک گذاشتن آنچه که از آینده در ذهن دارید متشکرم. می‌دانید برای بسیاری از ما این زمان سال یک معنی خاص دارد. چیزهای خاص برای تعطیلات. من در مورد چیزهای خاص تعطیلات مانند فیلم هوم الون برای کریسمس یا چیزهای دیگری برای هر تعطیلات دیگر صحبت میکنم. اما اکنون میتوانید یک چیزی ویژه دیگر را اضافه کنید. ویژه های نوروز. با تشکر خاص از دی اسمایلی تیوی. ما در واقع محتوای اصلی مانند نتفلیکس برای شما داریم. میتوانید اشتراک خود را با نتفلیکس لغو کنید. دقیقاً با کریو نیز لغو کنید. با تلویزیون آمازون، اپل و غیره. از آنجایی که تمام آنچه که در آخر هفته با آن نیاز دارید، تلویزیون دسمایلی تیوی پیشکش خواهد کرد. ما 3 محصول ویژه نوروز داریم که در حال پخش هستند. بگذارید آنها را برای شما بخوانم، زیرا بسیار جالب هستند. اولین موردی که ما داریم حافظ و ماجرای 7 سین است که فردا از تلویزیون اسماعیلی پخش می شود. این یک برنامه انیمیشن مخصوص کودکان است. بنابراین حتما این مورد را بررسی کنید. فردا Pebbles and Penguins نیز پخش می شود. خاطره از زندگی از نوروز 2020 تا نوروز 2021 از طریق موسیقی و شعر. و همچنین عصر یک شنبه نمایش برتر تلویزیونی اسماعیلی Hope Springs Eternal با کاوش در معنی و تاریخچه نوروز و لمس بسیاری از راه‌های جشن گرفتن جشنواره در سراسر جهان همراه با اهمیت 7 سین. بنابراین همانطوری که گفتم بسته های خود را با تلویزیون های دیگر حداقل برای آخر هفته لغو کنید، زیرا ما تلویزیون اسماعیلی را داریم. ممکن است فکر کنید خب من تعاملات جمعه شب را دارم، محتوای ویژه نوروزی را دارم، چی چیزی دیگر نیاز دارم؟ البته شما جواب را میدانید، غذا است. خب برای تحلیل از خوشحالی و جشن غذاهای نوروز ما این پوشش را نیز برای شما داریم. نگاهی و برخی از دستورهای پخت‌پز نوروز بیاندازید.
Hello, Yalimada. Bienvenue. Cooking in Quarantine Special Navroz Edition. Let's welcome our chef, Nimira Trania. Yalimada, how are you doing today?
All right, thank you.
Wonderful. So our Jamaat has been saying they're really missing our sherbet that they get at the dandias and kushalis. Can you tell me a little bit about sherbet?
It's mainly a milky drink, 3 different types of milk in there. It's a celebratory drink that we make for occasions like kushari, weddings, even announcements by the Nurani family. So we drink it a lot for our Jamaat celebrations.
Perfect. And what are the ingredients we have in here?
We have condensed milk, we have carnation milk, and then we have strawberry syrup, we have 2% milk, we have Chapman's ice cream, there's ice, and there's a few optional ingredients like cream soda.
Okay, where do we start?
We start with the lighter milks, the carnation milk.
Okay.
We need 3.5 containers of this.
Okay.
And we use the milk. We use 1 liter of milk. You can use homogenized if you prefer a thicker drink, but we opted to use 2%.
Okay, and then what's next?
And then we use condensed milk. Now in this one, it calls for 3/4 of the condensed milk.
So should we measure it?
No, we just go outside.
Oh, okay.
But we're going to use half because that's what I prefer in taste cup. I think that's half.
Okay.
Okay. And then we can use a teaspoon of this, which is vanilla essence.
Teaspoon of vanilla essence, okay.
Yes. And that is also optional. We don't have to use that.
So it's kind of to taste.
Yes, to taste. And we use half a cup of this syrup. This is strawberry syrup.
Strawberry syrup.
Yes. You can also adjust if you like by taste to add or reduce. And then you can use now that the carnation milk the condensed milk is in there, we need to keep stirring so that it blends in properly.
Okay.
And you use 500 mils of the cream soda. That is also optional. If you don't like to mix milk and soda, that's fine. It's enough. And then we add in the ice cream.
And can this just be added anytime, or do we need to add this right before serving?
No, we can add it now because we can use the ice to choose to add at the end before we serve. If we add the ice cream too late, it doesn't melt, and the ice cream then the sherbet doesn't taste the same. Now,
and how much ice cream are we putting?
1 liter of ice cream, so it's half of the 2-liter box.
Okay.
And ice cream we have to put in early, so you need to put the sherbet and make the sherbet a little bit early if you want to serve. Otherwise,
oh yeah, see, I see it's a big chunk there. It has to melt. Okay.
Yes, it has to melt, so we need to put this in and let it stick.
So these are the special ingredients that makes it very yummy, but we can't have in Jamaat Khana?
Yes, because we are making it nut-free. But if for taste, if you're making it for personal drinking at home, then you can add on the nuts if you want.
So this is the stuff I like from back home. They have some almonds there.
Yes.
And what's this?
This is called takmaya, or these are sweet basil seeds. And what you do is you soak a tablespoon of takmaya in a cup of water, and the end result is this.
Oh yeah, that's that googly stuff I see in the sherbet sometimes.
The nuts can be almonds or pistachios. We can crush them. We can leave them sort of slivered to taste.
Okay, that's just
sprinkled. Into this, and then when you're ready to serve it to the Jamaat or to the family, then just half an hour before you serve, you add on the ice so it remains nice.
So just a little bit before we serve, the ice cream is melted. We kept mixing it. Oh, for mixing, I have this very special tool I was told to use. This is what Ottawa Jamaat uses to mix.
Yes.
I mix with this now?
No, this is what we use for 1,000 people for Imran. For today, we'll make do with this.
And how many people is this recipe for?
This is for 25 people. We tweaked the recipe for 1,000 to cut it down to for 25 people.
Thank you for joining us on this Navroz edition of Cooking in Quarantine. Make sure you stay positive, test negative, get your vaccines, and Navroz Mubarak.
Navroz Mubarak.
Hello, Yali Madat. My name is Armina. I want to virtually welcome you to my kitchen. Navroz Mubarak to all of you. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make haft mewa, which is a traditional serving at Navroz in all Afghan families. Haft mewa means, it literally means haft, it's 7, and mewa, fruit. So we take 7 dried fruit and we actually mix them together and we make like a fruit salad. So I have the ingredients ready for you. what we have to do is before we actually start mixing them together, there is a pre-preparation that we need to do a day or two before we actually start mixing them. And the mixing has to happen a day or before actually Navroz Day. So that means maybe on the 19th or the 20th, you would have to start mixing them together. But before that, the preparation involves, as we have almond that we need to do the peeling, the walnut that needs some peeling, and the rest, and pistachio as well. So I have them all ready for you now, and we will just start mixing them together. I have some water already in my pot here. It's a bit of water, but with maybe a couple or 3 cardamoms. And what we do is now we start mixing them together. So of course it's Navroz, and it's a time of renewal and a time of forgiveness and time of starting everything fresh again. So that involves whoever is mixing this haft mewa will have to do a quick prayer for well-being and forgiveness and renewal of everything for everyone in that family. So whoever is mixing that, the responsibility actually falls on that individual to do the prayer for everyone. So pretend that I already did my prayers, and I'm going to start mixing them. So I'll start with green raisins. Green raisins, Bismillah. I have, as you see, almonds already peeled. I have apricot here, already washed and ready to go. I have walnut here, already washed and peeled. We have black raisins or red raisins. And I have pistachio ready to go. This is silverberry, which is very unusual to find, but we find them at all Afghan and Iranian store around Navroz. So now that we mixed and put them all together in this jar, I have filtered water that I'm going to mix it here. Just take your spoon and mix them together. Now this one, we will have to keep them in a cold temperature for about 24, maybe 48 hours before it's ready for Navroz and for serving your guests and families. So this is now going to go in the fridge, definitely in a pot maybe that you can cover, and put it in a cold temperature for 24 to 48 hours for Navroz. And I'm going to quickly now show you once it is ready to serve or to be served. Hello and welcome back again. So this is 24 hours after we actually mixed our dried fruit to make the haft mewa. So again, a warning that this is a serving with a lot of nuts, so please be mindful of whoever has nuts allergy. So now our haft mewa is ready to be served. Normally if you have a lot of family and friends gathering, then you can maybe put them first in a bigger jar like this, and then from that you can serve as they wish. So we have here our servings ready, and this is how you will just pull it out and maybe just go deep to get some raisins, because the raisins normally go and swim down. Now we have them ready and ready to serve it to our friends and families. I hope that gives you a good insight of how to make haft mewa. For those who normally make it, then it's easy, but for those who are trying it for first time this year, Give it a try and hope you enjoy that. And with that, from all of us and our families to all of you and your families and friends, Navroz Mubarak. May you have a wonderful year ahead. Thank you. Yali Madad.
بعد از تماشای کاری که این افراد انجام دادن فهمیدم که نمیدانم چگونه آشپزی کنم. آخرین خوشحالی وقتی که من و همسرم سعی کردیم بریانی را در خانه بپزیم، پیشنهاد پدر و مادرمان را برای آوردن مقداری برای ما رد کردیم. در عوض ما گوشت را بیش از حد پختیم و برنج را بیش از حد چاشنی دادیم و معلوم شد که خیلی عالی نیست. اما میدانید چی؟ حداقل ما چند عکس اینستاگرام گرفتیم. و در پایان روز آیا این همان چیزی نیست که مهم است؟ حس میزنم آنچه که میخواهم بگویم این است که لطفاً به خانه من نیایید. نه تنها تغذیه نخواهید شد، بلکه ممکن است اکنون حتی در خانه خود نباشم، زیرا همانطوری که گفتم در گوشه متروکه از کمپانی ایکیا هستم. برای نجات خودم از این شوخی حتی بدتر میشوم. بگذارید درباره مورد بعدی برنامه امشب با شما صحبت کنم و این شعر از جلال الدین رومی به نام بهار است که در مورد احیای مجدد و تازگی این وقت سال صحبت می کند. بنابراین برای لذت بیشتر شما این هم شعر بهار از جلال الدین رومی که به فارسی و انگلیسی خوانده شده است.
باز به نفش رسید جانب سوسن دوتا، باز به نفش رسید جانب سوسن دوتا، باز گل لعل پوش می بدراند قبا.
Again the violet bows to the lily. Again the rose is tearing off her gown.
باز رسیدند شاد زان سوی عالم چو باد، مست و خرامان و خوش سبز قبایان ما.
The green ones have come from another world, tipsy like the breeze up to some new foolishness.
سنبله با یاسمین گفت سلام علیک، گفت علیک السلام در چمنا ای فتا.
The hyacinth speaks formally to the jasmine. Peace be with you and peace to you, lad. Come walk with me in this meadow.
غنچه چو مستوریان کرده رخ خود نهان، باد کشد چادرش کایسر رو برگشا.
The bud is shy, but the wind removes her veil suddenly. My friend,
یا در این کوی ما آب در این جوی ما، زینت نیلوفری تشنه و زردی چرا؟
the friend is here like the water in the stream, like a lotus on the water.
نرگس در ماجرا چشمک زد سبزه را، سبزه سخن فهم کرد گفت که فرمان تو را.
The narcissus winks at the wisteria whenever you say,
گفت قرنفل ببید من ز تو دارم امید، گفت عزب خانم خلوت توست و صلا.
and the clove to the willow, you are the one I hope for. The willow replies, consider these chambers of mine yours, welcome.
سیب بگفت ای ترنج از چه ترنجیده ای، گفت من از چشم بد می نشوم خودنما.
The apple, orange why the frown, so that those who mean harm will not see my beauty.
فاخت با کو و کو آمد کن یار کو، کرده شارت به گل بلبل شیرین نوا.
The ringdove comes asking, where is my friend? With one note the nightingale indicates the rose.
چند سخن ماند لیک بیگه و دیریست نیک، چند سخن ماند لیک بیگه و دیریست نیک، هرچه به شب فوت شد آرم فردا قضا.
Many things must be left unsaid because it's late, but whatever conversations we haven't had tonight, we'll have tomorrow.
چه قطعه زیبایی. من میدانم که دل بسیاری از ما برای چهره‌ها و صداهای موکی، موکیانی، کامریا و کامریانی جماعتخانه‌های ما تنگ شده است. بنابراین بخش بعدی برنامه من را میخواهم به خبرنگار ما مدینه عزیزی تحویل دهم. این هم شما و این هم مدینه.
سلام و یالی مدد. اولتر از همه میخوایم که نوروز را برای همه شما تبریک بگویم و امید دارم که امسال یک سال پر از خوشی و سلامتی برای شما و برای خانواده شما باشد. این یک هفته بسیار خوشایند برای ما و برای خانواده ما هست. مادر جانم دین روز رفته بود به خریداری میوه خشک تا بتانه 7 میوه را برای نوروز آماده بکنه. هر سال ما 7 میوه را در جماعتخانه می بردیم و یک جا با جماعت صرف می کردیم. اما امسال چون جماعتخانه بسته هست، ما تنها در خانه به همراه اعضای فامیلی خود نوروز را آغاز می کنیم. ما آرزو داریم که نوروز شما هم امسال پر از شیرینی 7 میوه، سمنک و سفره 7 سین باشد. As you know, a number of Jamaat Khana have recently been opened on limited capacity basis in parts of the country where circumstances still permit. That still means that, of course, many of us will not be able to attend Jamaat Khana to commemorate Navroz. So, on your behalf, we have asked our headquarters Mukhi Kamriya and Mukiani Kamriyani Sahibas to reflect on what kind of year it has been and to bring special Navroz greetings on behalf of all of our Mukhi Kamriya and Mukiani Kamriyani across Canada. I really hope that you enjoy it.
The hardest part of the past year has been not being able to see all the Jamaat in person.
Something that we found difficult as we saw individuals facing this firsthand was the inability for families and friends to physically gather to either celebrate events such as weddings or together during difficult times such as the loss of loved ones.
Inshallah, as we slowly move back towards normalcy, we will value the opportunity for social interactions.
The hardest part of the past year was particularly during a murid's final days and hours when they have passed away. Pre-COVID, we would visit the hospital and meet with the murid and their family and offer prayers. During the pandemic, however, we have not been able to meet the murid or the family and have not been there to hold their hands and offer prayer and comfort.
Our favorite moment of the past year was when Jamaat Khana reopened in August. And the feeling you get when walking into Jamaat Khana, seeing our volunteers and our Jamaat with their smiling faces.
Well, their smiling eyes, and how everyone embraced the changes and guidelines. It really gave us a true appreciation of what we have in our Imam and our one Jamaat.
You know, there have been favorite moments and some really difficult moments this past year. But one of the favorite moments has actually been to see the resilience in our Jamaat grow as time has gone on.
Our favorite moments of the past year have been receiving Holy Talika from Maulana Hazri Imam, giving us comfort and guidance.
On being able to connect with our Jamaat personally on several occasions.
The most memorable story from the pandemic was when the Jamaat Khanas were closed after evening prayers one day. We called the murid to make sure that they were doing okay. And there was this one murid who was so happy. She said that she felt that she was in Jamaat Khana.
A story from the pandemic that was memorable to us was going hiking in the mountains.
We took advantage of beautiful weather and fresh air at Sulphur Mountain.
Before this pandemic, we were limited to only seeing members of our local Jamaat. However, this pandemic allowed us an opportunity to connect and interact with Jamaati members worldwide as we form global bridges and connections.
We truly experienced what it means to be one Jamaat.
So something from the pandemic that has been memorable for us has been the Friday night reflections. It's been amazing to see how when Jamaat Khanas closed and we lost that connection with each other, it was Friday night reflections that actually helped us to stay connected and remind us of the large community that we have that is able to support us during such a challenging time. The other thing that's been amazing about Friday night reflections is learning about all of the history, recognizing all of the Murids, our brothers and sisters that play amazing roles in society. right from journalists to business people to medical professionals.
The most memorable experience for us in the past year was
going for long walks with our families and watching Friday night reflections.
The most memorable story during the pandemic has been the work of our volunteers. They have been a real pillar for our Jamaat and a true example of the giving one's time for the benefit of others. But all our volunteers, whether they are in Jamaat Khana, at a funeral, or at a wedding or any other event, they are keeping our Jamaat safe, but at the same time serving Jamaat with such calmness and treating everyone with dignity and respect.
My favorite celebratory meal is beef biryani, chicken samosas, montar, and of course, without a doubt, there has to be sherbet during any celebration.
Mine, on the other hand, is I like chicken biryani, vegetable samosas, what else? Sev, and we have to have some papar or farfar to go with that. And then, of course, chai with marble cake.
We celebrate Navroz by visiting our families and friends,
in enjoying each other's company in good meals. Unfortunately, this year we are not able to do so because of pandemic, so we will have a virtual celebration.
Our favorite celebration meal is
biryani,
samosa, and af mewa.
What am I most looking forward to? That's easy. I'm looking forward to Jamaat Khana's reopening. And I'm looking forward to our lives coming back to normal, but inshallah with more wisdom and with more thought and reflection so that our daily activities align much better with our priorities.
With the acceleration of the vaccination process, we are looking forward to the reopening of all our Jamaat Khanas and inshallah in large gathering.
We are looking forward to catch up and celebrate with all of you the missing festivities.
This past year has been a challenging one, but it has also presented a lot of opportunities for most of us.
We are here for you. We are thinking and praying for you. We appreciate all the love and affection you have for us.
We are eagerly waiting to see you in Jamaat Khana soon. Navroz Mubarak.
What we wish to say to our Jamaat is all pandemics come to an end, and so will this one. With our Imam's guidance, we have hope and optimism, and we will inshallah see you again soon.
Have faith, stay strong, stay positive, and stay safe.
We would like to wish the Jamaat Navroz Mubarak.
We love you. We miss you.
Inshallah, we will see you soon.
Nous avons hâte de vous retrouver et que vous demeurez dans nos pensées et prières au quotidien.
In the meantime, please stay safe and optimistic. Inshallah, with Mullah's grace, everything will soon be back to normal.
Navroz Mubarak.
We want the Jamaat to know that we will never forget those who are no longer with us, and we are here for the Jamaat.
We are really looking forward to seeing you and are confident that with the Imam as our beacon of light, we will go further as a Jamaat than ever before. But for now, we're almost there, but we still need to be on guard and continue following guidelines.
We miss you. We're constantly praying for you and wishing you a sincere, love-filled
Navroz Mubarak.
Let us also pray for our Mushkil Asan, for peace, prosperity, and a return to normalcy. Let us pray for those that are living in difficulty and for those who are facing hardship. Let us also remember that Navroz is an opportunity for us to think about the future that we seek, and may we also renew our commitment to helping those around us who need our support. Let us remain true to our faith and to staying on Sirat al-Mustaqim. On behalf of all the Mukhi Kamne Sahibs and Mukyani Kamne Sahibas and all institutional leaders across the country, we wish every member of the Canadian Jamaat Navroz Mubarak.
باز هم نوروزتان را یک بار دیگر مبارک میگویم و امید دارم که با خانواده تان یک روزی پر از خوشی و سلامتی داشته باشین. تشکر و یا علی مدد.
یک جهان تشکر مدینه و از موکی، موکیانی، کامریا و کامرانی برای سخنان خوبشان متشکرم. این جای خوشی است که در این مراسم جشن نوروز از شما شنیدیم. امیدوارم خیلی زود همه شما را ببینیم. طبق معمول ما برنامه خود را با اجرای موسیقی به پایان خواهیم رسانید. اولین مورد ما نیو پرفیوم یا عطر جدید است که ما را در چمنزار گل‌هایی که در روز نوروز شکوفا می‌شوند غوطه‌ور می‌کند. و قطعه دوم ما نوروز 400 نام دارد. این قطعه با کلمات است که در ابتدا توسط پیر ناصر خسرو نوشته شده و ورود نوروز را جشن می‌گیرد. در هر دوی این قطعه بیش از 20 خواننده، موسیقیدان و هنرمندان رقص از سراسر کانادا حضور دارند. از اینکه این هفته با ما پیوستید متشکرم. یک بار دیگر اسم من زین ولجی است. نوروزتان مبارک و یا علی مدد.
I'm finally breathing. It's like the air cleared up. I'm beaming, how I'm feeling, lighting up the sun, shining down with sugar scented bluebells flowering, shining down and I'm a savor it, no deflecting, like a new perfume, feeling so brand new, like daffodils blooming in the rain. Got my new perfume, hello in my room, like sandalwood burning through the flame. It's been a while since I smiled like this, it's like the seasons change.
روزی سعید آمد یا رب که مبارک باد یا رب که مبارک باد یا رب که مبارک باد نزهت و مزید آمد یا رب که مبارک باد 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 منشور سرور آمد اشرق بزور آمد تفریح و سرور آمد یا رب مبارک باد منشور سرور آمد اشرق بزور آمد تفریح و صدور آمد یا رب مبارک باد نوروزی سعید آمد یا رب که مبارک باد 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 یا رب که مبارک باد
شد شیدت دیگوتا دل شد زیر پیاده هر لحظه بگو صدره یا رب که مبارک باد شد شیدت دیگوتا دل شد زیر پیاده هر لحظه بگو صدره یا رب که مبارک باد
نوروز سعید آمد یا رب که مبارک باد یا رب که مبارک باد یا رب که مبارک باد نزهت و مزید آمد یا رب که مبارک باد یا رب که مبارک باد یا رب که مبارک باد چون مژده عید آمد مبدا به محید آمد نوروز سعید آمد یا رب که مبارک باد ای چون مژده عید آمد مبدا به محید آمد نوروز سعید آمد یا رب که مبارک باد نوروز سعید آمد یا رب که مبارک باد 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 फूल, मिट गई दिलों से गमों की धूल। रंगो बहार महक और फूल, मिट गई दिलों से गमों की धूल। हर शय में रोशनी है, हर कली में है खुशबू। तेरे नूर से मौला, तेरे नूर से मौला, तेरे नूर से मौला, तेरे नूर से मौला। खुशबू इमामत की फैली